Close your eyes and picture a farm. What comes to mind? Right now, you're probably imagining a large open field with a bunch of different animals. Cows grazing, chickens clucking, maybe some sheep in there as well. You probably picture this farm being run by a small family that has a strong connection to this land and their local community. Now take that farm with all these animals, all these vibrant different forms of life, and throw it in the trash. This is a modern American farm, the majority of which specialize in growing just one thing: corn. Every year, the United States produces 374 million tons of corn. That's 683,480,000,000 pounds of corn. That is a lot of corn. Traditional farms, known as polycultures, that grow many different types of crops and livestock, have been largely replaced with large-scale industrial monocultures. On these farms, nearly 100% of the land's agricultural commodities end up being sold to a large corporation. These are America's monocultures, the majority of which grow crops not to feed the American consumer, but to feed what feeds the American consumer. These farms are huge centers of industrial agriculture. They always prioritize high output and efficiency over quality. Monocultures are big and heavily subsidized by the federal government. When we take a look at these crops, specifically corn, and what they're used for, we can start to see why. Of the 345 million tons of corn that are grown in the United States every year, 35% goes to animal feed, 32% goes to making ultra-processed food, 31% goes towards ethanol production, and just 2% of all the corn grown in the United States is grown for the sole purpose of human consumption. The majority of corn is used to feed industry, not people, and in this video, we'll explore the consequences that this type of farming is having on our health and the environment. To understand how the American food system works, we first need to take a look at one of America's favorite foods and the animal that produces it. Yup, I'm talking about steak. That good old ribeye that you know and love. Maybe it's a New York strip or the filet mignon. We're taking a look at the beef cow and how the industrialization of this animal has shaped our modern farming landscape. These ancient animals have evolved for centuries, grazing to their heart's content on fields of open grass. Cows are part of a hooved species of animals known as ruminants. Ruminants have complex digestive systems that specialize in breaking down and absorbing nutrients from grass. One compartment of their stomach, called the rumen, is host to trillions of bacteria that specialize in breaking down and absorbing the nutrients from grass. However, over the past 100 years, this ancestrally aligned diet has been completely turned on its head. Remember how I said 1/3 of all corn grown in the United States goes to animal feed? Well, chances are, if you've eaten beef of any kind over the past year, it's been raised on a diet of corn, antibiotics, and possibly even the carcasses of other cows. What you're looking at is a concentrated animal feeding operation, CAFO for short. Also known as a feedlot, this massive plot of land is used for the sole purpose of raising cattle for meat as efficiently as possible. On a feedlot, you won't find many plants growing. In fact, growing anything on this land is pretty much impossible. Cows live on these feedlots up to their ankles in their own manure. In small amounts, this manure can be good for the soil because it's rich in nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus. However, in high quantities, like the quantities found in feedlots, nitrogen and phosphorus can leach into the groundwater, causing serious contamination and environmental hazards. As cattle manure breaks down, it releases methane, which is a greenhouse gas that contributes to climate change. Feedlots have such a big manure problem that they have entire lakes filled with this stuff. There have been many instances where unexpected weather events come and wash away these lakes, leading to extreme groundwater contamination. When an industrial calf is born, he spends about 6 to 9 months on the pasture before being taken away and put into a feedlot. This is where he'll spend the next 6 to 12 months eating as much corn and getting as fat as possible. For feedlot farmers, corn is a win. It's cheap, there's an abundance of it, and it fattens up cows extremely quickly. While a grass-fed cow being raised on a pasture may live for over 30 months before reaching slaughter weight, grain-fed cows can reach that same weight in just 1 year. While grain-fed cows may get fatter faster, they are also more prone to disease. In fact, most feedlot farms have a veterinarian that's there full-time to treat and diagnose sick animals because it's so common. One such disease is known as mad cow disease, and this is an infamously well-known disease because of its ability to spread to humans. If you eat an animal that was sick with mad cow disease, it can turn into Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. Symptoms include psychiatric issues like depression or psychosis, unusual sensory symptoms, and neurological signs like unsteadiness and difficulty walking. This disease is always fatal, and there is currently no known cure. Cows acquire this disease when farmers put the carcasses of other animals in their feed, a practice which is common on the feedlot. The sad part is that many of these diseases could be completely avoided if Americans weren't so dead set on raising cattle on the feedlot. Pasture-raised cows have significantly lower rates of infection from diseases like E. coli and other bacteria because of their grass-fed diet. In fact, the government's entire witch hunt against raw milk would be completely vindicated if most cows were raised on pastures instead of feedlots. However, it's the unfortunate truth that small-scale farmers who try to raise healthy animals to feed their local communities are actively punished by the government. The beef industry is so heavily regulated by the USDA that it makes it nearly impossible for any small-scale farmer to buy a plot of land and start raising beef cattle. The industry favors scale and efficiency, and unless you're planning on selling your beef to the 4 meatpacking industries that control 80% of the country's beef, you're pretty much out of luck.
And so what happens is farmers like us get accused of being, oh, you're a bunch of elitists, you got this high-priced stuff. Well, I can tell you, most of our high pricing has nothing to do with actual production costs. It's actually trying to squeeze our 300 beef a year through a filter that is built for 5,000 beef a day. And that's the problem.
However, there is a glimmer of hope for this corn-fed nightmare. A movement amongst farmers and consumers that prioritizes a strong local connection between food and land has rapidly been growing in popularity. In an upcoming video, we'll talk about regenerative farming and how farmers are using it to transform the food system as we currently know it. If you've ever picked up a package at the grocery store, flipped it around, and read the back label, chances are you've probably seen one of the following ingredients: xanthan, xylitol, absorbic acid, baking powder, caramel color, cornstarch, corn oil, corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup, maltodextrin, dextrose, ethanol, artificial and natural flavors, hydrolyzed vegetable protein, citrate, vanilla extract, sorbitol. What do all these ingredients have in common? You guessed it, they are all extracted from corn. This is where the other third of corn in the United States goes: to make the ingredients of ultra-processed food. To make these ingredients, corn is mixed, blended, extracted, genetically modified, and chemically enhanced to make artificial preservatives, flavorings, syrups, and much more. And currently, ultra-processed food makes up over 60% of the average American's diet. These foods are high in sugar, salt, and fat, yet contain little to no nutritional value. The food industry loves ultra-processed foods. In their eyes, these chemically isolated ingredients can be blended together to make frankenfoods that are hyper-palatable and highly profitable, and then marketed to a commercial audience. However, the king of all corn additives is none other than high fructose corn syrup. In the late 1960s, food companies were facing shrinking profits and couldn't keep up with the growth that Wall Street expected. So food companies tried desperately to figure out how to get their customers to buy more. Eventually they realized that by increasing the portion size, they could get people to buy more, spend more money, without them feeling gluttonous or piggish. There was just one problem though. These companies only had access to cane sugar as a sweetener, which was a relatively expensive ingredient. While alternatives like corn syrup did exist, it was nowhere near the sweetness profile of cane sugar. The cane sugar molecule is what's known as a disaccharide, meaning it has one molecule of glucose and one molecule of sucrose stuck together. Corn syrup is just a glucose molecule, and that means it's not as sweet as a glucose and a fructose molecule put together. It wasn't until 1965 when a Japanese scientist figured out a method to convert the glucose molecule in corn syrup to glucose and fructose. High fructose corn syrup was now born. High fructose corn syrup was able to match the sweetness profile of cane sugar while being around 25% cheaper. Suddenly, processed food companies like Coca-Cola were able to increase their portion size while also cutting their cost of goods. Today, high fructose corn syrup is used in tens of thousands of processed food products and is one of the reasons the corn industry has such a strong foothold in American agriculture. After World War II, agricultural industrialization led to the explosion of corn farming in the United States. During this time, new technology became available to farmers, hybrid seeds which produced more yield, engine-powered machinery which allowed for more efficient planting and harvesting, and the use of commercially available pesticides and fertilizers. All these reasons and more made corn farming somewhat profitable and very popular. This rapid agricultural shift led to the overabundance of corn flooding the agricultural market. The government initially wanted to incentivize this corn abundance because agriculture is good for the economy. So in order to try and keep the price of corn down, the government subsidized these corn farmers. Whatever losses the farmers incurred would be covered by the federal government. Naturally, this incentivized corn farmers to grow as much corn as they possibly could. This is when the idea for using corn as animal feed came around. This is also when the field of food science came around, which is where scientists will take food ingredients like corn and extract them and turn them into artificial ingredients for the use in ultra-processed foods. Corn is symbolic of the excess overconsumption that Americans are known for, and at the same time is a very real contributor to the environmental and health crises we are facing. Currently, 1 in 3 people are overweight, 2 in 5 are obese. The average person is depressed, overweight, and suffering from at least one chronic illness. This is in large part due to the rapid industrialization of our food system. Americans have never been more disconnected from the farms where all of our food comes from. Thankfully, there is a glimmer of hope. More and more people are starting to wake up to how processed industrial food is leading them to an early grave. Farmers markets are becoming increasingly popular, and there's more demand for sustainable, ethically farmed, chemical-free food. In a future video, we'll explore the regenerative farming movement and how it's transforming our agricultural industrial landscape. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave a comment letting me know your questions about the food industry that you want answered. Thank you for watching. My name is Maximilian. I'm a health coach, fitness enthusiast, and I have 3 years of experience working in the food industry. I'm a big believer in knowing where your food comes from, and I love educating other individuals like yourself on our food system and its flaws. If this message resonated with you, consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and leaving a comment because it will help me put out more informative, entertaining content like this.